Welcome to Mocktails and Masterpieces with the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra, sponsored by Anthony Shefferly and Associates. Hello, and welcome to a special episode of Mocktails and Masterpieces. I think they're all a little special, but I'm here today, of course, with Maestro Kraemer, and we're excited to talk about our upcoming film, The Gold Rush, the Charlie Chaplin masterpiece from 1925.
It's 100 years old. I can't believe it. I mean, I'm a big Chaplin fan. ICO has a relationship with at least one other Chaplin film that we've done in the past. So I'm really excited about it. And we're sold out, Dana. That's another
Yeah.
great point that people do love Chaplin and his incredible creativity.
It's exciting to be sold out several weeks in advance of a concert. It's always a sigh of relief to know that we're going to have a fabulous audience and we don't have to worry about attendance. And of course, the film itself is a masterpiece, an early film for sure, but exciting to be a part of that and be able to share a Charlie Chaplin masterpiece. Yeah.
So interesting thing about this is, as I mentioned, we have done City Lights, and it's been a number of years already, but that was essentially a talking film in 1931. The Jazz Singer is credited as being the first talkie in 1927, and after that, many people thought it was a fad, but it was quickly realized that there was so much potential for this new technology. Not only because you get away with the dialogue stills altogether, and let the conversation run the show, but also for live scores to be accompanied. I'm a huge early film buff, and so you have to cut me off before I'm talking too much. But in days, I mean, these films, these silent films, are sent around to movie houses, and it would either be a pianist or an organist, or maybe a small orchestra that would compile sheet music together to accompany these films. So for the first time after Jazz Singer, now producers and directors had the ability to unify a project seamlessly, and that's what was sent out all across the country. So to be able to compose a film score that you knew was going to be intact every single place that it was played was invaluable. And Chaplin latched onto that. City Lights in 1931, he helped score that. Of course, we know he was a genius. He was brilliant. Director, actor, entrepreneur, producer, but also composer. He didn't really read music. He kind of, sing some melodies, but he had the idea in his mind. He would get with a team of orchestrators. So he did write essentially the film score for City Lights, Modern Times eventually, and then coming back to Gold Rush in 1942. He didn't write the score for it, but he worked with a team of people to put this together. And so I think we've talked briefly before this interview that this film has a complicated history of how it was produced and sent out and reproduced and sent back out. So it's really a bona fide silent film that's been reconstructed with a live score, and it's a marvelous work. I mean, it's rated very high always with the history of film as being in the top 30 films of all time.
Yeah. Well, let's talk some about versions. So, there was an original 1925 version, then it was revamped in 1941, and that's when the score was composed. But our version is actually back to 1925, where they've re-edited and it's condensed down. It's actually about 10 minutes shorter than the 1941 version. Um, what sorts of changes have you seen both versions? 'Cause I
I
haven't seen
have, and
it.
and they're all available on YouTube, so you can see.
Okay.
In 1925, the film is almost 90 minutes. And so when Chaplin came back to this and wanted to convert it into, not necessarily a talking movie, but it was, he added dialogue over it, replaced those dialogue, the printed captions of dialogue,
Mhm.
with his own voice. And he removed three scenes in particular with it, condensed it, several minutes. But when they decided, Timothy Brock, who does a lot of the restoration for the Chaplin films, to restore this and make this available for live orchestral accompaniment, reintroduced those three scenes. It's so often the case with these silent movies, like original film is lost, and so they were able to kind of reconstruct it. So you can actually see in the version we're going to do, there are three different places where the film quality changes and is a little bit more deteriorated, and it's because they reintroduced that from film stock, and so it's a little grainier. But so the film score again was constructed in 1942 by Max Trier, who was somebody who worked with Meredith Willson, worked with Chaplin quite a bit. And it's interesting. So it's kind of a Frankenstein version of what we're going to do. It's the original version from 1925 with all of the elements of 1942, um, without the movie title, without the dialogue titles. So I think it works very very well because it ties the movie better together, in my opinion. To see the full extended version of it, the Indian Kiss, for example, was removed. Now we've put it back in together for Georgia, and the Prospector, or the happy ending is much better. So I tell our audience to go look for yourself. And again, both versions are available, but it does tell a very different story, both 1925 and 1942.
It's really interesting to look at the evolution of film and also think about the evolution of film music. This being sort of in like the middle, right? Not the very beginning, but definitely not where we are today with film music. I watched the film over the weekend and was really struck by the amount of severe borrowing from other composers. So maybe you want to talk some about some of the themes that you are going to recognize very quickly as you hear them in the Gold Rush.
And this, again, as I mentioned earlier, with early silent film scoring, was totally the norm. If you were at a movie theater in the early teens, 1910, 1912, this is exactly what music directors in cinema would be doing. They would be taking pieces of tabloid sheet music and accompanying, the whatever film was up there, and they would borrow relentlessly from major composers. And so I think that again, Max Drew, the composer for Gold Rush here in 1942, was paying homage to early silent film accompanimental practices.
Mhm.
So you'll hear, for example, Tchaikovsky, the wonderful Sleeping Beauty waltz, which anybody who's watched Disney film knows. Flight of the Bumblebee, of course. There's hints of Wagnerism, of Siegfried, and some of the later ring cycle stuff. It's fascinating because they just change a few notes and maybe they avoid the direct quotation, but it's so eerily similar. Prelude to the Afternoon of the Faun, lots of French influence in this. So just recently I was going through it, and I mean, at least a dozen connections that I could make with composers with this. But again, it's all to connect with us emotionally as a viewer. And there's a reason for that. So what is being done in this film is no different than what would have been done in early silent film accompanimental practices.
And it's fascinating also how he used music to be sound effects without a sound effect. I found that really striking as I was watching it, different from some of the other silent films that we've done, specifically.
And we have, on that note, Dana, to mention that we have made some major uh, changes in what we've done with this. What's now over, I think, 15 years, the ICO has done a silent film. In the last 2 years, for example, to be able to accompany Joan of Arc with the chorus, a silent film, or Michael Shapiro's score for Frankenstein, which was a talking movie. So there's a great deal of potential, I think, to revisit some real masterpieces and to bring them to life. We all know the John Williams, Danny Elfman, Hans Zimmer scores are immensely popular with symphony orchestras, but I can't think of too many orchestras around the country who are as connected and dedicated to preserving, 100-year-old tradition the way that the ICO is.
Yeah, it's a really exciting project to be a part of. And the past few years, our film concert has been a highlight, and it continues to be a highlight. Obviously, we're sold out. People are excited to experience these films in kind of their original status, and that's a really exciting thing to be a part of. Matthew, can you share some about how you prepare the orchestra for such a magnitude of music without an intermission? How's that work?
I cut out about 3 weeks of my life and I watched this film a couple hundred times. It's interesting because, as I referenced earlier, live film to orchestra accompaniment is very popular, but there's always with modern films some kind of safety net, whether it's the screen in front of you with a bar counter, a click track in your ear, streamers that go across. There are so many ways to keep you connected to the exact moment in the film you're supposed to be at. And that does not exist with silent films. We don't have the break ever in silent films that we do with the John Williams score, or et cetera, like I mentioned. Music plays for 6 minutes, 7 minutes at most, and then there's a few minutes to catch your breath. The orchestra is going to be playing 90 minutes nonstop, and the score, both scores that I have weigh about 30 pounds altogether. So it's just a lot of music. You have to know every intricacy of it. There's some freedom in there. You can push and pull a little bit, but you really have to be so connected with the film that you know every little gesture and every pause, every little iris in and out, that you can be on guard. And as I mentioned, we're so adept at accompanying silent films with the ICO. I mean, once we've done 1927 Fritz Lang's Metropolis, which was almost 3 hours long. I mean, that was a virtual bloodbath for the orchestra to keep their embouchure and their fingers together. Like, we've done so many incredible films. It is a real treat. It is a lot of work, but it is worth every bit of it.
And so much of this music really does match the movement on the screen, as many of them do, but this one I think more so than others. It feels very,
It's ballet, Dana. I mean, you're absolutely right. It does accompany in the same way. Every little trip and fall, the cabin teetering over the precipice.
just walking up the
All of
hill.
it.
Yeah, it has
Yeah,
a
it's
very,
pantomime. It is
yes.
absolute pantomime, and that's why it's so important that the orchestra's timing is right. But that's the magic of music. If you were to watch this without film, without music rather, it just would not have nearly the same effect.
Yeah, I'm sure our modern patients couldn't sit there through silence for that long. The music really does make it quite entertaining, and it doesn't feel like this is sitting 100 years on the shelf. So
No.
it's a really great project to be a part of. I would say you can visit our website, icomusic.org, to purchase tickets. But you can give us a call. It's possible that we've had some tickets turned in. We'd be happy to find a seat for you if those are available. But that being said, we do have several upcoming concerts, including a special collaboration on March 9th with the Lynx in Limelight, A Conversation in Sound, and also our Land in the Music, kind of the title concert of our season, Land in the Music, on April 5th with a very exciting commission, the Haydn Mass, and we'll be back with Mocktails to talk about that project more next month. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Matthew, for sharing your passion for film, old film, silent film, and look forward
Thank you,
to
Dana.
the performance. Yes.
It's going to be terrific. Appreciate it.